HarperCollins presents Alfie the Holiday Cat by Rachel Wells. Read by Edward Killingback. Prologue. I was dreaming about pilchards when I felt a tail tickling my fur. I opened one eye to see George, my kitten, hopping around my bed excitedly. I opened the other eye.
"Wake up, Dad, it's Christmas!"
He purred in my ear. I raised my whiskers. It felt far too early to be awake.
"Wake up, everyone!"
Summer's voice shouted, shattering any peace and quiet.
"It's Christmas!"
She had joined George, and they were both jumping around, making me feel quite dizzy.
"Meow,"
I replied. I saw shadowy darkness poking through the landing window, but I knew no one would be getting back to sleep. When Summer made up her mind, no one stood a chance, and George was turning out to be the same way. The door opened and Claire, wrapping her dressing gown around her, emerged with a sleepy, tousled Jonathan on her heels. "Goodness, it's only 5, Claire complained.
"But Santa's been, I know he has!"
Summer shouted.
"So it must be Christmas time right now."
She stamped her little foot. George tried to stamp his paw, but he hadn't mastered that. "Where's Toby?" Jonathan said, picking Summer up and giving her a hug. "Happy Christmas, my little princess." She snuggled into him.
"Meow,"
I replied. He was still in bed. Toby was the only sensible member of the family, it seemed. It was George's first Christmas ever, and Toby's first with us, which meant it was one of the most special Christmases ever in Edgar Road. We had all been full of excitement and expectation, although Summer had been the most excited, with George a close second. Toby had been a little hesitant. Claire and Jonathan said it was because he hadn't had a good life up until now. Toby had been adopted by us. He was 5 years old, and although Claire and Jonathan hadn't shared details of his life so far, I knew he had been taken away from his parents and had lived in foster care before he came to us. That meant he had had more than one home up until now. Claire said to him, to Summer, and to me and George that we were his forever family, and he had a forever home with us now. I understood that better than most. I had had a life before here too, although that did seem so long ago. When I first came to live on Edgar Road, I had also had a home before. My home had been happy, full of love, but my old owner died, leaving me homeless. Instead of being put in a shelter, I had taken matters into my own paws, and I'd taken a treacherous journey to Edgar Road, where I learnt many things along the way, and then I became, as I am today, a doorstep cat. This means I have more than one home, and more than one family to love me and love in return. It so happens that I mainly live with Claire and Jonathan now. This is my forever home too. But they used to live separately, and I lived with them both until I brought them together and they got married. I also have 2 other houses I visit, and we're all great friends, more like family even. Claire and Jonathan, with Summer and Toby, Polly and Matt, who have 2 children, Henry and Martha, and Tomasz and Francesca, my Polish family, who have 2 sons, Alexei and little Tomasz. They are my families, and since George came to live with us as a tiny kitten, I adopted him. They are his families too. But back to Toby. He had obviously had a traumatic beginning in life, and although he was loved and safe now, it was a big adjustment for him. When he first came to live with us, he cried every night. Claire would go and cuddle him. Jonathan would read him stories, and in the end, George took to sleeping in his bed, right beside him. He does that every night now. Toby sleeps really well with George beside him. It's the only way he will sleep, I think. I worried at first that Summer might mind. She is a madam, and she thinks that George
Sample complete. Ready to continue?